I landed on the floor of the women's bathroom with all kinds of symptoms of menopause, not knowing then. And I wound up at a couple of different doctors, and one finally said, after some blood work came back, in menopause, dot, 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 any questions in my patient portal. Those were the 4 words that I got to find out that I was in menopause. And when I look back on it now, it's kind of funny, but then it was not funny at all. I was horrified. But I looked back and I went, oh, I wonder if all these things leading up to this were menopause.
All right. Brain Table fam, 70% of women say menopause played a role in their divorce. 1 in 10 women quit their jobs because of it, and yet we're still not talking about it. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on a topic that has been whispered about for far too long: menopause, and who better than to break us through the stigma that created this incredible movement around the globe, Tamsen Fadal. She's an Emmy award-winning journalist, best-selling author, speaker, and a fierce advocate for women's health after experiencing her own menopause wake-up call. She's made it her mission to empower women to take charge of their midlife journey. And her latest book, How to Menopause, is the ultimate no BS guide to navigating this transition with confidence, clarity, and power. And today, Brave Table fam, we are getting raw, real, and maybe even a little rebellious as we talk about the truths no one tells us about menopause, perimenopause, relationships, reinvention, and what it really means to thrive in the midlife. So buckle up because this conversation is about to get brave. Hello, Tamsen.
Hi there. I love the rebellious part. I can't wait.
I mean, how edgy and juicy to start the show. So, I mean, you've literally been on this press tour for the last 6 months. The book has gone mega, mega wild. Did you ever think that this was going to be the movement? Was this what you had envisioned?
Oh gosh, no. I was told early on when I started talking about this 5 years ago that there was not gonna be an interest in this, and there wasn't any kind of audience to talk about menopause. So I think I'm so grateful that women have stood up and said, "Oh, no, we are talking about it in every way, in every area, at every dinner party conversation." So it's exciting for me to see this. I'm so grateful, but I think the most exciting part is seeing women getting help and not suffering, and that's where we need to be, and we need it tenfold.
Well, yeah, I feel like you've literally made this kind of your, what I like to call on the show, your dharma, to really help elevate these conversations. Because and I kind of want to start there, because has it always been for you to be that truth seeker? And what kind of began or kicked off your menopause or perimenopause journey? For a lot of the folks on the Brave Table, were kind of braving motherhood. A lot of us just had our kids in our late 30s, early 40s, and now we're starting to experience these symptoms of perimenopause. So if you can take us through that lens.
Yeah, I didn't even know I was in perimenopause when I was. I just knew that I'd had some weird things going on in my body in my early 40s. I wasn't sleeping. I was gaining weight in all these weird places, like dresses were too tight that were fine, a day before. And I was having what now I can call brain fog, but didn't have a word for it before, except stress, which is what the doctor said when I said, I'm having a problem. Like I'm like reading a word and then I forget the word and I can't remember. Is it something wrong with my brain?
Yeah.
And nobody had the terminology for me. So yeah, I started out not knowing what perimenopause was and not knowing what menopause was until I was right in the middle of it. I was a news anchor for a long time. And so I think that that's where the truth seeker part comes in, always asking questions, always wanting to know what's going on, always trying to get to the bottom of something. And I did the evening news in New York City for 15 years, and I was a local journalist for 30. And one night I was doing the news and I landed on the floor of the women's bathroom with all kinds of, now I understood, symptoms of menopause, not knowing then. And I wound up at a couple of different doctors, and one finally said, after some blood work came back, in menopause, dot, 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 any questions in my patient portal. Those were the 4 words that I got to find out that I was in menopause. And when I look back on it now, it's kind of funny, but then it was not funny at all. I was horrified. But I looked back and I went, oh, I wonder if all these things leading up to this were menopause. I didn't know the word perimenopause. I didn't know that was something that happened starting in your early 40s. I just knew nothing. But I knew I wanted some answers for myself to start feeling better. And that's how the journey started.
Wow, and what's kind of the misconception? Because obviously, we were just chatting before we hit record
Yeah.
that, we had a screening here
Yeah.
for your
Very exciting.
documentary, which was mind-blowing, and actually even my husband saw it and he was
Oh,
like,
wow, sure. I love that.
okay, this completely changed the way that I've viewed everything that I ever wanted to know, didn't want to know, and I'm so glad now I now know. And so, for the partners that are also listening to this or the women who are going to tell their partners to even watch the documentary, what is it that we can kind of gauge from learning more about this season in our life? And I love how you've kind of created this mega movement around it to normalize these discussions.
Oh, thank you. I would think there's so much to learn. I do get excited when I hear men trying to learn about it, even if they feel like they're an overload. I'm like, well, we're going through it, so you can just learn about it. So I think that's so important. But I think being able to go into this, understanding what you're going into without feeling fear. The last thing I want is a woman in their 30s or 40s to feel like there's fear going into this. Look, every day is not great. I get it. There's some scary things, and your body feels like it's changing, but I would definitely say that this season of my life has felt really different than it did for the last 10 or so. Now that I've gone past most of the big symptoms and understand what I'm dealing with. I think that confidence that I have now of understanding things, understanding solutions has made a huge difference. But on the other side of it, not knowing, that was the scary part. So that's why I get excited about the information.
Well, and so with your book, How to Menopause, you know, I mean, I'm 42 and I'm loving this season of life, right? Post babies and all of the things. Some
Yeah,
of
of
my friends that feel like everyone's talking about perimenopause now, and
course.
it's
Yeah.
just it's such a
Would
big thing. But I didn't realize, and obviously learning this from your book, I didn't realize that the true definition of menopause is not having your period for 12 months.
yeah.
Like, then you're
That's
actually in it. So
then
can you
you're
take us through kind of any other definitions that we need to know for the
yeah.
younger girlies out there,
Yes. There's love this.
about menopause?
Yeah, I love this part. Yeah, so I think it's always been very confusing. We have all these different stages of it, which I don't necessarily know that we need all these different stages of it, but to understand it, perimenopause is before, right? It's the time leading up to menopause. So when I wrote the book, I was like, is it how to perimenopause or is it how to menopause? And I thought, well, some people don't even know what perimenopause is. So we're going to go with how to menopause so people understand, how to get to this area of life. And so yes, I did a lot with perimenopause because those are the most volatile, crazy years. Those are the years that your hormones are all over the place or moving up and down. That's the time before menopause, 4, 7, sometimes 10 years. You can see these hormonal shifts that come in the form of irregular periods, sleep disruption, belly fat, feeling anxiety, feeling rage, itchy skin, achy joints. When you hit menopause, which is just the time that you have not had your period for 12 months, anything that's one day, anything after that is considered postmenopause. But I just call it all menopause at that back end because then it gets too confusing. Like, oh, I'm in menopause today, but tomorrow I'm postmenopausal. So Dr. Sharon Malone was like, yeah, we have all these words. And I go, yeah, you're right. So for those of us that have had brain fog for a long time, anything after, that one day of menopause I call it menopause. But those are what the different terms are. Perimenopause, though, can feel like this very volatile time because it's confusing. You have a very heavy period, one cycle, then maybe you skip a cycle. Maybe it's heavy again and again or irregular. You might been the person that hits the bed and goes to sleep instantly. Now you're not sleeping anymore. You have weird things happening. Frozen shoulder might be happening. Everything that's going on right now is a fluctuation of your hormones, your estrogen, your progesterone. Those are the big hormones that are seeing a lot of fluctuation. And so I think it's important if you know those symptoms or some of those symptoms, and that's why I did an entire chapter of just listing symptoms. And then I did a QR code to list more symptoms in the back of the book. because there are so many, you have estrogen receptors all over your body. And I was like, it's really important for women to not feel confused. When you feel confused, then that's the worst part. You feel like you're going crazy, something's wrong with you. And then you kind of like that's where that cycle starts. So that's perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. And I think that those are the three big definitions. And then understanding hormone therapy, whether that comes in the form of estrogen and progesterone or adding in vaginal estrogen and testosterone. Those are all some of the options of hormone therapy.
Yeah, so that was kind of the big misnomer, right? That was the biggest myth that women were kind of not getting. And obviously, from watching the documentary, I mean, I didn't even know that, you before you weren't getting prescribed or estrogen and any hormone therapy was like kind of not in anyone's radar, and even the testosterone and testing for your testosterone to see why you're feeling a little bit more tired and things like that. So let's kind of double click on that and go deeper into that, because I feel like that was really alarming in the documentary itself, and I've heard statistics. I mean, my mom's Filipino and my dad's Indian, but South Asian women kind of experience these symptoms of perimenopause 5 years earlier, and so does African American women. So, can we just dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, there's different. Listen, menopause is not a one size fits all, and everybody comes through it different ways. And there's statistics showing a different cultures and how different women come in or out of it. And with Black women, they can have symptoms that are more intense, lasting longer, and come into it earlier. And so I think that there's some of the different. Data and information points that we're learning about it that we still need more. Like we've had the Swan study, we had the Women's Health Initiative, but there's so much more information that's necessary to understand the why of it and to really understand how to deal with those symptoms and what those symptoms mean. There's been a lot of looking at, like, if you have hot flashes, because that mean you're more at risk of, intense hot flashes, could that mean you're more at risk of more of cardiac issues. And so I think when I am talking to women now, I realize it's not about like the 2-day symptoms. It is the tomorrow of what we're talking about, of trying to prevent, issues with our brain, issues with our heart, issues with our bone, osteopenia, osteoporosis, and paying attention to those. Because I think that, I talk to so many women that are like, well, my symptoms aren't that bad, or how bad do they have to be for me to, address them or do some hormone therapy? It's not so much about that. It's about what that means for the future.
Well, you say that there's about 34 symptoms associated with menopause.
Yeah.
What are the symptoms or changes most women experience, but, maybe they don't realize that it's part of perimenopause or menopause?
Yeah. Well, I think the irregular periods is a big one, because I was told for a long time that when I was going through the irregular periods, it was all stress. And so I was like, okay, I guess it's stress. But the truth of the matter is that's where you're having so much fluctuation, that perimenopause periods. If you're still getting your period, that's the perimenopause area. It's why you don't really need blood tests, because the truth is that if you're seeing these things happen, it's symptoms. That's what a doctor's going to go by anyway. You can
Yeah.
do tests, but in perimenopause, you're going to be up one day, down one day, up one day, down one day. So those irregular periods mean that those cycles are happening either closer or further apart. And then I would say, like, the lack of sleep and not being able to sleep and feeling that rage and feeling anxiety. A lot of women say to me, like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden I went from like feeling great to feeling like a lot of social anxiety.
Mhm.
Brain fog is another huge one. Brain fog, I don't even think we really have a word for medically, but it's
Yeah.
essentially like the word recall, or trying to remember a word, or trying to figure out when we go into a room, difficulty concentrating, which some of those symptoms mimic ADHD symptoms. And it can be really scary for women. Like, 2/3 of women go through cognitive changes during menopause, and that can be very scary for women. And many times, you rebound after that and come back to where you were, but it's frightening.
Mhm.
Fatigue, oftentimes a big issue. Heart palpitations, a big issue. Hot flashes, we know, obviously already. Dryness all over your body because of those estrogen receptors, low libido, painful sex. So that
Wow.
list goes on and on. But I think that I realized that I was playing whack-a-mole with my symptoms. I'm like, "Oh, I'm really tired. Oh, it's stress. Oh, I'm over here with regular periods. Maybe it's my endometrium polyp." So, I was going all over the place, and I think that that's what a lot of women have gone through. They didn't even have the word perimenopause to just talk about 5 years ago. I mean, it was there, but we weren't saying it.
Well, and, can now knowing, what we now know about all of these symptoms, can they be avoided just with hormonal therapy? And when is it the right time to really begin to talk to like practitioners and and do we have to find like a functional medicine doctor or are our MDs actually equipped to handle these conversations?
Yeah, I don't think that they can necessarily be avoided because hormone therapy is important and it's the most effective treatment for certain symptoms of menopause. And so that's why I say when it's not one size fits all, you have to pay attention to what's going on with you, to what you're going to be dealing with. And that's why a lot of lifestyle changes are really important, whether it's incorporating protein, whether it's paying attention to your movement, whether it's watching sleep. Maybe you're not going to sleep like you did when you were 20 years old. So you've got to pay attention. Stress management, another very big one. I think all those are really important to pay attention to because hormone therapy is not going to fix everything. Um, and I would say, with regard to a practitioner, you've got to find somebody that is comfortable having the conversation. If that person is a GP, great. If that person is a cardiologist, great. You've got to find somebody who feels comfortable talking about and prescribing or not prescribing, if that's what you decide you don't want to do,
Mhm.
hormone therapy, or just having a discussion around perimenopause and menopause. Because if you're going into a doctor and you're hearing, "Oh, you know what? Perimenopause is just trending right now," which I heard somebody told me recently, a doctor said to them, that's
Wow.
that's a bad place to be. That's
Oh,
not a
yeah.
doctor you wanna be with. You need to have somebody that is listening to you, that is understanding what you're going through, is preparing you for this area of life, and if they're not preparing you, they're equipped to deal with, like, whatever those next steps are, because 'cause you're gonna be in this for a long time.
Mm.
And I don't think it matters whether it's functional medicine or it's a doctor that is, an OBGYN, but it has to be somebody that is paying attention and understanding how to talk to you about these things.
Yeah, which is kind of a navigation in and of itself.
It's like a full-time job. It's a full-time job. I'm
Yes.
very grateful for telehealth and, telemedicine. I think that's a really, really, it's really something that has been very, very helpful and is definitely changing the game. But there's no question in my mind that we've gotta get better about it, better educating practitioners and educating women at the same time.
Well, and I feel like it's almost like, when we go to find or date around to find a good therapist or a good coach, right? I think we have to have that agency also in trying to interview our practitioners to see if
Mhm.
that's the right,
And we
if
have
they're
to
the
do
right
that.
person for us and the right
We
fit for us.
have to do that. And it's
So
scary. It's not comfortable to do that. It's not comfortable to question doctors even for me, and so that's why I wrote the book. I was like, "All right, I'm gonna give women scripts and understanding just so they can come in there educated about some of this stuff and ask the right questions."
okay, so there are scripts in the book that we
Yes.
can have access to, which I love.
Mhm.
What is one thing that you wish, and this is for, our mamas that are just kind of like in their early motherhood stage. What is one thing you wish your younger self knew about,
Oh, god.
sex, confidence, your hormones post 40?
Oh gosh. I wish I hadn't been afraid to, like, talk about what was going on with me. I think that I was afraid that it was all wrapped up in age, and so somebody was gonna judge me. I wish that I, knew that low libido and painful sex were very naturally part of all this, and that there wasn't something wrong with me.
Mm,
And I wish my younger self paid more attention to me and didn't have to, like, have all these things happen before I said, "Oh, wait a minute, maybe you have to be focused on yourself a little bit." And
mm.
so I wish that I had done that 10 years earlier. And so I'm grateful that I do it now, but I wish I had known that earlier and had paid more attention to it and didn't think that that was just a luxury.
Yeah. Okay, so a recent study found that 7 in 10 women said menopause contributed to their divorce. So, why is that number so high and what tends to happen to women in menopause?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of confusion during this time. I mean, women have this confusion, so it makes total sense that men have it. But I think we have our listen, here, I'll talk for myself. I got remarried at 50 years old, and I
Congratulations.
thank you. I wasn't interested in having sex anymore. All of a sudden, I went from like this sexual being to like, don't come near me.
Mm,
I didn't know how to communicate that. I didn't even understand what was really going on. It was 4 years ago. I was just learning about all this. I think that there's a lot of confusion that gets tied up in it all. I think there's a lot of misinterpretation from a partner. If you're all of a sudden going like, don't come near me. I feel totally different. I don't know who I am anymore. And so I think that there's a lot of that happening. Look, not everything is menopause and perimenopause. Sometimes relationships run their course. Sometimes we decide that like we want something or need something different in our lives. But I am not surprised by that because I really do understand the changes that I went through, and I
mhm.
understand the changes that physically and psychologically that we're going through during this time. And if we're not talking about it, and if a partner doesn't understand and can't help identify some of those things, it can lead to a lack of communication and a lot of confusion.
Well, and, you know, to be fair as well, it's almost like, even hearing you speak about it, um, I'm even thinking about women who've just kinda got their mojo back. Like you said, you got your mojo back, you got your confidence back. I wonder if there's some kind of threads there that women just have more confidence to trust themselves and their own intuition
Oh,
for
a
what's right for them.
100%. I 100% think that. I see it and I feel it too. And I do believe that. And I do believe women are like, hey, I've got this much time left and I'm going to do it the way I want to do it and enjoy it how I want to enjoy it. And I think there's something to be said for that. I really do. And I've seen women do some incredible things during this next season. And it's exciting to see. But I also think that it's important to know why it's happening and why
Mhm.
we're feeling like this and exactly what we're going through because sometimes you come out the other side and you're like, wait, what, who was I? I did feel like that for a long time. I didn't recognize who I was during some of those years.
Yeah, well, I was talking with a girlfriend who literally she's turning 60 this year and she just had her full year. So she's officially in menopause.
Yeah.
And she was sharing, she's like, for literally the last 7, 8 years, I had no idea who I was. I was going through bouts of, just like her mental health wasn't all there. She lost some confidence. And now she's like, I have this full swing of a different version of myself I had never known existed. And she has so much more energy. It's like, some just new essence and great juju in her step these days. And so what for the women who are listening or watching this on YouTube who are struggling in their relationships because of menopause, or they find kind of a new kick in their step, or perhaps they're realizing that their relationship is kind of on rocky waters, how can they start the conversation with their partner in a way that
Oh,
builds trust and
yeah.
understanding instead of that distance of us, like, pushing one
Yeah,
away?
it's such an important question. I think the biggest way is to just really, really be honest about this. I mean, this is an area that can be delicate and uncomfortable. I think the conversation shouldn't start in the bedroom because that's not helpful at all. Because now we're equating all of this to that. I think it's important to be open to the conversation wherever it leads you. I think explaining what's going on first and foremost, so a partner doesn't think it's just them or something's going on with just the relationship, that these are changes that you go through. Look, I think that it can be very frustrating for women. And so that's why I always hate to put the onus on women. But unfortunately, that's where we are right now in terms of, finding the right doctor and making sure that our partner is very aware of why we're, turning down the air conditioner, why we're not able to sleep, why we're flipping all over the place, why we're, really, really frustrated in this time in life. But there's a lot of changing needs. And I think it's important to understand, what is happening so you don't feel like you're living with your roommate because that sucks. And, in the book, I go into some different areas and things you can do to kind of spice up the relationship, whether it's thinking outside of the, just going out to dinner box or finding different ways to reinvigorate the relationship with your partner.
Mm, so needed,
So
and
needed.
so needed, and I wanna just double click on that even more because if you could sit every man down and literally have, I don't know, a menopause master class for men
Yeah.
and give them a menopause survival guide,
Yeah.
what would be the top 3 things that they actually need to know?
I think the first thing they need to know is that this is a hormonal change, but you don't need to go identify it like, "Is this your hormones?" I think the second thing is, understanding that this is a temporary, amount of time and, there's the other side of it. And I think third is being patient and being understanding, and, that is gonna be the most important thing that you can do, and really understanding that, it's not something that we can just flip a switch and change. But if you can be sympathetic and understanding and aware, I think that's going to make all the difference in the world. I really do believe that women with supportive partners, it makes a big difference in their menopause experience.
Well, I wanna redefine this narrative of, aging and, the whole anti-aging movement and, rewriting the menopause narrative. Because looking back at my ancestors, it was kind of like, all right, I'm done. I'm just going to wait till I have grandkids. And they're just sitting back,
Yeah.
nothing wrong with it. Maybe they didn't know any better. But if you could give menopause a new definition, what would it be?
Oh, yeah, I think that this is this new season with a lot of hope, and, I call it the bolden years versus the golden years. Like, I really do think that there thank you. I really do think there's something to that. I think that, there are a lot of exciting things that happen during this time, and I think that identifying yourself as just, like, your age and, making you think like, "Well, that's it. This is where we go. There's nothing else." I think that is just really sad to see because I think there are really some exciting things that this season can offer. I really, really do. And I hope that menopause can be that kind of beacon of change for a new season versus something to be shameful about and think that it's wrapped up in age and stigma.
Yeah. And so I guess, for the women who maybe fear that they become less desirable or they lose their spark,
Yeah.
or perhaps maybe they've been cheated on, for a younger woman,
Yeah.
what's your message to women who secretly fear this and how can they actually reclaim their power back?
Oh gosh. I think that there's a lot of fears. There's no question about that. But I think you've got to get to re-know you again. There's no question in my mind. I went through a very, very messy divorce with a lot of those things happening. And I didn't have a lot of that confidence. And I had to really spend a lot of time with myself and understand who I was, what I wanted, what was important, not fear some alone time because I think my dad told me it's better to be lonely alone than with someone. And I think I really heard that in a big way after, during my divorce and after my divorce. And I realized that that was not what I wanted. And so I said, like, okay, who are you now? And what do you want? What do you really want? Like, we have one life. It's not that long, and I think we want to be able to appreciate every moment of it. But I don't think we can do that if we're allowing somebody else to make those decisions for us and determine our self-confidence and where we are. And I think that's what a lot of women feel during this time. I think it's very comparable to this time in life of saying like, "Hey, who am I? What do I want? I've done this for everybody else for such a long time, and now here's where I want to go, and here are my next steps." Takes time.
Yes, and did you ever imagine that, you're normalizing these discussions on menopause?
Did I realize that?
Did you ever
Uh,
imagine that this was gonna
Oh, no. I was a journalist for a very long time. I had no idea. I just knew I couldn't stop talking about it. I didn't know that that was I didn't realize, I don't think until after we put out the documentary that, the most exciting part of the documentary was gonna be the conversations happening afterwards with women in the room all over the world. And I had no idea that the documentary would go all over the world. We were, like, on PBS here in the States, and I was excited about that. And then we started allowing, communities would be like, "Hey, it's not in my city. Can I see it? Hey, hey, hey." And so we started giving it out to different organizations and groups. Um, and that's when I realized, like, oh, there's a real thirst and a hunger for this information. That's where I realized, like, this is bigger than what I could have ever even imagined that women need. Like, I knew I needed it, and I knew women in my community needed it. I knew on social, but I just had no idea where it was gonna go, and, so I really feel grateful to be a part of it all. I feel like the conversation is really just getting started because we have so many more solutions that we need, and so even though people are like, "Oh, I keep hearing about perimenopause and menopause," and I was like, "Oh, there's more." So, I'm happy it's normalized. I'm happy that men are bringing it up to me in the street. I'm happy that women are talking to me about it at the dinner table, and I hope that's happening all over the world.
Yeah. Well, and also I kind of want to talk about some of the lifestyle changes too, because I feel like on your socials, on Instagram, I love seeing your reels, by the way. I think it's
Thank
so
you.
fabulous. And, you know, all of the fashion sense and everything that you're kind of doing and creating. I just love it. And also, you've kind of shared this a few times on Instagram and kind of the way you've had to change the way you even work out, the foods that
Mhm.
you're eating, the way that you sleep. What have been some of these pivotal changes for you kind of entering menopause or perimenopause versus the way that you used to take care of yourself in your 30s?
Yeah, I mean, I look in my 30s, I didn't sleep, didn't care about it. Was on a treadmill all the time trying to like burn calories. It was, I was doing everything pretty much wrong and or pretty much different.
Mhm.
Now I prioritize sleep. It's huge for me. I don't stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning unless I just have so much on my mind I can't sleep watching Netflix. I am paying attention to how I work out in the gym. I still train at least 3 times a week. It's made a huge difference for my body and my energy and how I feel. And I can feel it when I don't work out that
Sure.
way. And I've like really tried to pay attention to what I'm eating differently and instead of the caloric, like, oh, I can't have that. I don't want to gain weight. It's nothing like that. I'm thinking about muscle and I'm thinking about protecting my bones and I'm just looking at everything very differently. And it took a long time. It didn't happen overnight. It really took studying and researching and really understanding what my body and understanding what I was doing wrong for it and what I was doing right for it and trying to lean more into the doing right for it and stress management, even though, I hear people go, like, try to manage your stress. I was at, I don't even know what that means, but I'm learning. I'm learning how to do that because I'm learning to be a little bit more gentle on myself and not give myself that, record of like, you're not doing it fast enough, quick enough, better enough, smart enough.
Do you feel now that you are on the other side of menopause that you have way more creative ideas, more energy in your business? I mean, I feel like that's kind of also a similar pattern that you have that energy in terms of the same work power that men actually experience, because you're not getting your periods anymore.
Oh, the energy part.
Yeah.
Um, I do feel I go both ways, I sometimes I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I don't know." But I think that's just from working so hard right now. So I do feel a lot of energy. Like if I look, you and I were talking before I jumped on here, and I've been kind of in a whirlwind of traveling all over the place, and it's super exciting. I think that a lot of my motivation and energy comes from the fact that I really love the conversations I'm having, and I really know what I believe in and what my purpose is. When somebody asked me a long time ago, like, you'll know your purpose when it finds you. And I'm like, what does that mean? And so, but now I went back and I understand what that means. I try not to
Oh,
repeat that to people because I think that people are like, okay, thanks for that esoteric answer. But I do know that like once I started this conversation, I couldn't stop. Like I can't, I go to bed talking about it. I wake up in the morning talking about it. I go to dinner talking about it because I really see that we are so behind in terms of helping women and helping women thrive during this time in life, whether we're talking about menopause, perimenopause, reinvention, career, that yeah, I'm energized, even
yeah.
more so than men.
Right? Yes. So, for the woman right now who feels stuck or uninspired, perhaps exhausted, going through brain fog, and feels like her best years are behind her, what's the one thing that you want her to
Yeah,
get?
I guess I wanna say that, first of all, your best years are not behind you, but you've got to get hold of your health and make sure that that's priority right now, and you don't have the luxury to not do that. Like, you really just have to do that and pay attention to it. I definitely know your best years are not behind you unless you want them to be.
Mm,
And, it's a choice. We make a choice, right? And so I think that you have this whole we could live 30 plus years in menopause, in postmenopause, and there are some incredible times. Better sex, more energy, more wisdom, being a little more bold, and I think that that's exciting to me. Being wiser and bolder and more aware of what's going on and less fearful is really exciting.
So I went to this networking event not too long ago, and so many women in the room were kind of sharing a lot of their insecurities and just things that we all deal with as women. How the imposter syndrome and kind of thinking about what everyone thinks about you and all of these insecurities that we just have, right? But what do you think happens? And is there a visceral shift that happens where after, you enter menopause, you're just like, I do not give a flying F anymore. I'm going to do me. I'm going to be unapologetic. And I don't care about these things. Like, do you quiet the noise? Is that really a filter? Because tell us
Yeah,
about
I don't even know how it happens, but it is because 'cause I'd always heard that too, like it happened kind of midlife. And I was like, "Well, I hope I can catch that." Like I care about everything. Um, Look, do I still care? Of course I do. I'm not immune to people, but it doesn't overtake me like it did before. And I think I go back to I got this amount of time left on this earth. I'm going to enjoy every moment of it. If someone doesn't like me, invite me, care about me, be my friend, call me, there's somebody else. And I don't say that in a light way, but I say that in a way that I don't want to spend my time being around people that don't want to be around me. I don't want to spend my time working hard to get somebody's attention because that person's probably not worth it. And I don't want to always have to have the filter on. And I think I've had the filter for a long time. I think a lot of us do when we're younger. And I think I did my time with the filter. So that's where we get to be here, and I think that that's exciting. And I did always see that in women that were older, and sometimes it was, like, too much, I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, she's just nothing doesn't, says anything on her mind." But now I'm like, "Well, I guess sometimes that's okay. Some of that's okay." So I think there is a freedom that comes with this age. I think there's a wisdom that comes with it. I think there's an ability to communicate a little bit differently that comes with it, and I think that that's exciting. I think knowing who you are is really what that answer is at the end of the day. It's about that simple, is that it's knowing who you are and not trying to be somebody you're not.
Oh, so good. So good. So good. Mic drop moment, Tamsin.
That's so
So
sweet.
as we wrap and we get into our little rapid fire round
Yes.
before we let you go, because I know you're so busy.
No,
Where
no.
can what's the best place we can follow you? And obviously we're going to put everything about how to menopause in the show
Oh,
notes.
thank you.
But what is next on the horizon for Tamsin Fadal?
Yeah, so I'm excited about my podcast. I'm doing a podcast called The Tamsen Show. So we're interviewing a lot of the people that are in the book and in the documentary, and so that's exciting for me to be able to make the conversation even longer and wider, and being able to ask people questions. And then I'm still doing the book and still out there on the tour and looking to see whether or not we do some additions with the documentary and see what else is in store for that. Production and journalism is at my core. And so I'm excited to be able to combine those two things together in a big way and keep advocating and teaching women how to advocate for themselves.
I mean, it is so inspiring what you've
Thank
literally
you.
created, just like that,
Thank
and
you.
just all together. So
I really appreciate it.
incredible. We're on the ride with you. We definitely want more people to learn and educate themselves because I feel like it creates so many ripple effects, even in our
I think so
relationships.
too.
So
I think so too. And look at us. Like, I don't know if we would have met before this, and that's exciting to me.
I know, and you've been on my
Yeah,
radar for a while, so I'm so glad we're having this
I'm
conversation.
thrilled. I'm thrilled.
Okay, so I don't have chai right now, but we do have our
Okay.
spill the chai section.
Okay.
So, our little rapid fire round. All right. So, the fastest thing that comes to your mind, you can answer it as short as you want or as long as you want.
Okay.
Pilates or lifting heavy?
Lifting heavy.
Mm. Describe menopause in 3 emojis.
3 emojis. The cry emoji, the sweat emoji, and the sunglasses emoji. Those are my 3.
Okay, hot flashes, is it annoying or an excuse to crank up the AC and steal all the blankets at night?
Oh, love that. It's annoying.
Oh gosh, what's the wildest thing that you've done and totally blamed it on menopause?
Oh, goodness. The
Mm.
wildest thing I've done probably is cranking down the AC. I put it down to 61 one night because I was, like, so ridiculously hot, and then, my husband got up and he's like, "What is going on in this house? What's going on?" I think I, like, stopped the whole AC, and so I was like, "It's menopause, it's a health thing." And so he's like, "Okay, are you okay?" And I was like, "I think so." But, that's it.
Oh my gosh. Well, I never understood these hot flashes until I saw this viral reel about this African American woman. She is just she had the fumes kind of just like circling up, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And it just met mega
Yeah,
viral. All right.
yes, it's unbelievable.
You really turn into a furnace. I
Unbelievable.
didn't realize that. Okay, myth or fact, you'll never enjoy sex again after menopause.
Oh my god, myth. Myth.
Okay, it only gets better.
Yes.
What's an unpopular opinion that you have about menopause?
An unpopular opinion about menopause.
Mhm.
An unpopular opinion is that it doesn't get better, and that's not true.
Hmm. What are you braving currently?
Um, I think I'm braving that's a good question. What am I braving? I guess I'm braving new beginnings because I'm still in that reinvention stage, I left my job about a year and a half ago, so I'm still
Woo!
braving this terrain as a entrepreneur, and so that's different for me.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting. And then one word that describes this season of life.
Oh, bold, bold.
And how would you define bravery post menopause?
A bravery post-menopause? Well, I would wanna say filterless, but I don't think that's it. I think that the bravery is, being open and honest about this conversation and not be afraid to say it to anybody anywhere.
Amazing. Amazing. Tamsin, this was such a powerful, powerful conversation. Thank you. And I feel like you are just literally creating ripple effects for all of us. So I'm so
Thank
excited
you.
to see what comes up next for you.
Me too. Thank you so much for all of us.
Of course. All right. Until next time on the right table.
You know I've got so much more in store for you. So if you are really ready to dive in and keep owning your emotions like the boss that you are, click right here. Go ahead, don't be shy. I'll see you in the next one. Keep shining.